Here are my victims, or I mean participants, for my speech. The date is November 3rd, 2019, and I'm going to be doing my informational speech or informative speech. Go ahead, guess that off. All right. So, thank you for your help with this, guys. I really appreciate it. So, go ahead and start. Today we're going to be talking about anxiety amongst college students and the whole college experience and what that looks like. As we know, going to college is a unique experience. It's a period of transition for a child going under parental care, moving into independent adulthood, and with these transitions tend to come stresses naturally. So at what point, as we look at these stresses, do we question whether or not these stresses are mutating into something more sinister, i.e. anxiety? Terms like anxiety, depression, and other mental health challenges are becoming more and more commonplace terminology. Everybody and their cousin seems to have an opinion about what anxiety or depression is and what it's about. So for the purpose of this speech, we're going to look at these terms a little bit closer, or anxiety specifically, to gain clarity and understanding. 1, the definition of anxiety and how prevalent it is amongst college students. 2, a potential cause for anxiety. And 3, practical tips for managing symptoms. So first, we need to look at identifying anxiety. In partnership with the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, anxiety.org defines it as the mind and body's reaction to stressful, dangerous, or unfamiliar situations. It's the sense of uneasiness, distress, or dread you feel before a significant event, like doing a speech. Both stress and anxiety can feel this way, so at what point does this diverge and become anxiety? The American College Health Association classifies that definition and expounds on it by saying anxiety to the point that it negatively impacts the student's performance, such as lower grades, skipping classes, or dropping courses altogether. So, the ACHA goes on further with this analysis. In 2015, it conducted a survey and found that approximately 21.1%, or 1 in 5 college students, struggled with anxiety to this level within the past 12 months. This survey also disclosed that 15.8%, or 1 in 6 college students, have been formally diagnosed and are being treated with anxiety. So to illustrate, in a college classroom of approximately 30 students, 5 of them are being actively treated for with medication or seeking a therapist to deal with the stresses of going to college. So if you're ever asked, is anxiety an actual legitimate problem on the college campus? The answer is yes. Now that we're armed with this information, that then begs the question of what's causing this anxiety. Psychologists have been looking at this term and studying it for several decades now and have found a lot of interconnected factors, but for now we're just going to look at one, what they call the locus of control as a factor. A locus of control is defined as basically the personal agency someone feels, or the degree of personal agency someone feels over their life, so how in control they feel over the choices they make, the consequences of those choices, being responsible for them, etc. 2 classifiers for locus of control are internal and external. So for a person who has an internal locus of control, that means they feel comfortably in charge of the choices they make and their consequences. External locus of control means that individual feels that other circumstances, people, factors are in control over their lives and not themselves. For students in high school, before they transition into college, their locus of control is more external, as parents and other people in their lives are kind of dictating for them what's going on. With their school schedule, reprimands for doing homework, even what they eat at home. When they transition into college, that locus of control becomes more internal as they're learning to manage this on their own, dealing with a tougher workload, managing their own time, dealing with new dietary freedoms, such as the freshman 15, things like that are what these new students are dealing with. That tends to be a major trigger for anxiety. Now, 50 years ago, this transition was more manageable as college was more affordable, it was more feasible to go to college and work part-time at the same time. However, today, many college students still struggle to live at home and pay for college at the same time, so there's this dissonance with their locus of control, meaning they're trying to be independent and do their own thing, but at the same time feel dependent on their parents. In a longitudinal study conducted between 1960 and 2002, Professor Twenge and her colleagues came to the conclusion of, and I quote, "Today's college students display a more external locus of control than 80% of college students in the 1960s, a disturbing finding since an external locus of control has been linked with poor physical and mental health, anxiety, and depression." So, now that we understand more of what anxiety is and how a locus of control affects it, what are some practical tips to identify and manage anxiety symptoms as they appear? First, we need to understand what these symptoms are. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, some symptoms include a sense of impending doom, increased heart rate, difficulty breathing, trouble sleeping, gastrointestinal issues, etc. So, once we identify what those symptoms are, an individual needs to commit to dealing with them in a healthy and constructive way. Lisa Smith, the director of Boston University's Center of Anxiety and Related Disorders, recommends that, quote, often it is more important to manage your emotional reaction to stress than to try to change the stressful situation, which may not be fully under your control. What this means is, as tempting as it is to drop a class or quit altogether, that doesn't fix your anxiety. We must learn to manage our emotions on our own. So what are some ways in which we can do that? Well, when we're dealing with something that's causing anxiety, it's important to attack that problem quickly before you have a chance to ruminate on your mind and let it grow into something worse. It's also important to use encouraging self-talk, coaching yourself through it, that the problem is manageable. You can break it down into smaller chunks. It's going to be okay. It is not going to be the end of the world, etc. And it's also important to understand your breaking point when you reach where you feel like you need to talk to somebody, to reach out and start to do that. On a college campus, great resources to start with are academic coaches or academic advisors. In conclusion, we have talked about what anxiety is, a potential cause for anxiety, and how to manage those symptoms as they come up. So if you find yourself identifying with these symptoms of anxiety, understand that you're not alone. Know those feelings are temporary and that they will pass, and that it is a sign of strength and not weakness to reach out and ask.